Hi, and welcome to the first module of the Roos Leadership Academy. So the first part of the series is just really going over the foundations of leadership, because if we don't effectively get taught leadership, how do we learn? So I really just want to break that down. And there's 4 modules. So I'm just going to break it up into 4 parts for this particular first month to give you, as I said, just a general overview of my thoughts of leadership. The first module, which we'll start with, will be unconscious leadership. The second module is when we start to be more cognizant of the people around us and we start to understand that we are actually learning something. The first module is really, we have no idea what we're learning. We're just aware of our surroundings. The third module will be becoming a leader, and I'll tell you my story about becoming a leader of sort of the Fitzroy, and that's leader by title, all right? Because as you will know through the course, we can always be a leader. And then the fourth module will go through the traits of great leaders. All right, so a couple of principles. How do I learn leadership? And I'm going to go over that, as I said, in the first module. Most of us learn initially just by our surroundings, just by our people around us, and just by watching. What are the foundations of leadership? Once again, so how am I building, how am I constructing my leadership model? What is leadership? Even that word is used a lot. So I'm going to break down what that is and why is no one teaching it? Whether we go through school, we go through university, then we start our journey. Really, no one is consciously teaching what leadership is. So we're going to break that down as well. All right, leadership is not about title. So the CEOs I work with, some are really, really good, but also some aren't great leaders. So just because you have a title, whatever that title may be, doesn't make you a good leader. In fact, the highest ranking person can effectively be the worst leader. Ultimately, a junior member of a team can be a great leader. Now, the reason I say that is because of what I want you to be clear throughout this course is leadership is action. All right. Leadership is not about title. Leadership is, what are your behaviors? What do you do? What do you consistently show up doing? All right. So leadership is action, and action is a behavior. So an action is something you can see. All right. Who's the most loyal person? You know. Who's the most supportive person? You know. Who's the most honest person? You know. What are their behaviors? Really, really important. So once again, leadership is not about title. A CEO can be a bad leader. Obviously, we're hoping they're the best leader in the organization, but that's not always the case. A junior member of the team can be a great leader. In fact, I've had first-year players or players coming to the club, from another club, and they've immediately worked their way into their leadership group because of their actions. All right, leadership is action, and action is behavior. Is leadership a learned skill? Something I get asked fairly regularly, or are you born a leader? I suspect some of the traits you may be born with, and we'll go through profiling, but you can absolutely learn leadership. And I'll show you that through this module, the first month of the program. Leadership is absolutely a learned skill. It just depends on where you're learning it from. Are you learning good habits or are you learning bad habits? Do you have to relearn? And we'll touch on that as well. But leadership is absolutely a learned skill. All right, just a quick brief on me. Who am I and why am I credentialed to teach in the Roos Leadership Academy? 2005 Sydney Swans Premiership coach, 356 AFL games, 17 years as a professional player, 6 years of captain of the Fitzroy Football Club. Probably the first title I really had as a leader was when I started to become captain, and I'll talk about that. Captain of the Victorian State team, captain of the All-Australian team, which was more of a symbolic. It really wasn't a game, although we went to Ireland to play against the Irish team as well. All right. So as a player, as a coach, I've had a lot of experience, hands-on experience of good leaders and hands-on experience of bad leaders. All right. 2008 Father of the Year, Australian Father of the Year. So I was able to integrate my role and leadership role in the family with my wife, Tammy. So I'm married to my wife, Tammy, my 2 boys, Dylan and Tyler. So whatever role you're in, that's the other thing. Don't worry whether you're not captain, you're not playing sport, all right, you're just going to school, whatever. You can be a leader and learn leadership at any age. And in fact, you are, as we'll go through in this model. Sydney Swans head coach from 2003 to 2010, the head coach of the Sydney Swans Academy, 2011 to 2013. Why was that significant? Because really that was dealing with a lot of young guys, young boys at that stage, 11 to 18 years of age. Right? So watching that development, taking fair responsibility for those players' development in a leadership space. And then the Melbourne Demons head coach, 2014, 2016. I'll go through all of those roles anyway, but just to give you some context about why I'm sitting here and why you're listening to me. All right. The first module is unconscious leadership. So we're all learning leadership from basically day one. But clearly, when we're born and we're in the early stages of our development, we don't understand that we're actually learning. We're just doing when we're just watching. All right. So this is really the foundations of our leadership development. Doesn't matter who that is. All right. We're all going to be learning different things at different times. All right. So 0 to 13, which is fundamentally unconscious learning. We learn before we really understand what learning is. When I was father, I was aware of it, but having a grandson now, I'm much more aware of how cognizant of his environment is. And I'm just going to give you some examples because this is really, really important. It's important for learning your leadership, right? Because you may have to unlearn some of the things that you're learning unconsciously. And equally, if you are a leader now, I suspect a lot of you are, understand that people have so many different experiences from 0 to 13, right? So when they're forming some of their thought processes unconsciously, they're all having different experiences. And as I said, I'm more cognizant of it now with my grandson. Even things like his favorite words, airplane, because he travels a lot. The environment that he's in, he travels a lot on airplanes. It's amazing. His first word is airplane, love you. He's surrounded by love. He's surrounded by people that love him and say it constantly. Ooh, he calls it an oohoo, which is a monkey. He watches a lot of videos. The only videos he really watches are of documentaries and reading books on animals. So I've just really noticed that early on, he picks up things really, really quickly. Really quickly. Everyone is picking them up unconsciously. What's the environment you're creating? What's the environment you've been in? Quick golf story. We're playing golf, and this is how quickly things happen. Playing golf with my son, had a couple of bad shots like we all do, swore, okay, and then 5 seconds later, guess what Rainer did? He swore as well. So it's really quick, really quick. We're picking things up really, really quickly. So the foundations of leadership happen really early. The actions, the grandson's actions, Rainer's actions, right? Loves being outdoors. He's always outdoors, loves being outdoors and play equipment, running up and down. His coordination is really good. He's quite task orientated, right? His mum does a lot of cooking, cleaning around the house. He sees everyone cleaning around the house, whether it's not often me, but Dylan, Kat, Tammy, right? So he picks up the vacuum cleaner. Really, really interesting. He's super friendly because he's surrounded by people all the time. He's super friendly. And a safe space is his bedroom. He loves going to bed. So once again, just think about that. What was your environment as a kid? All right. Look around you now when you're seeing young people, whether that's young people at work or even grandkids or kids or what have you, be cognizant of what they're seeing, because whatever they're seeing is what they're doing. Right? The words that Rainer is using, the actions that he's doing, unconscious. He's 2.5 years of age. That's it. But it's been fascinating to watch that develop. All right. Now, then there's this myth of normal. What starts to be normal? So in those early years, as I've articulated, we're not really conscious. We're just watching and we're picking up things. Suddenly, in the early teenage years, what is normalized? What happens all the time, constantly when I get up every day, right? What's normalized? What have I seen? What are my parents doing, right? For me, my environment was, when I say pretty normal, was mum and dad were together, right? What were my parents doing? And I look at my mum was very organized, my mum was competitive, mum was very family orientated. She took us to training. We walked to school so we didn't have to go to school, always made us lunches. So again, I'm just talking about things. I'm 61 years of age. I can still look back and see from a leadership point of view, from a mum and dad point of view, what they normalized. Organized, competitive, family, loyal. All right. My dad went off to work every day, pretty much the same time, right? Reliable. I just remember he was super reliable. He would volunteer for things all the time, constantly, super reliable, just did things that had to be done. He was really popular. Everyone loved him, really friendly guy. And I remember at the tennis club, he had great sportsmanship when we went and played tennis. So for me, this is normal. For you growing up, it may not have been normal. For the people you're managing, there's varying, they're going to have thousands and thousands of different experiences, what they believe is normal, right? So in those early teenagers years, we're starting to see things consistently, and that's starting to shape our leadership thoughts. All right, so 13, this is really interesting. We sort of stopped listening to our parents, so roughly 13, 14. So it developed this unconscious learning. We're starting to look at what's normalized in the early teens. And then where do we start learning from? Friends, peers, mentors, sports, hobbies, travels, lessons, habits. All right, so everyone, again, we're looking at different levels of learning and different environments, but our environment is going to shape our lessons on learning. All right, my experience. Now, this is my experience, which is going to be vastly different to a lot of people watching. Once again, I would have to sometimes change my leadership habits. And I'll talk about that when I started to become captain, when I started to become coach, because some of these experiences were good, some of them weren't so good. Equally, when I was a leader, I had to be aware that everyone has different experiences. So I had a small group of friends in Donvale High School. There wasn't many of us. We had a small group of friends, and this is at school. Obviously, I played a lot of sport, but at school, and they were smart. They were conscientious, they were active, and they were loyal. Really important. So think about those words, because they were the words that shaped my definition of leadership: conscious, active, and loyal. Mentors, teachers, coaches, family, and friends. So we start to, broaden our horizon in terms of where we're seeing leadership. Netball coach, football coach, teachers, etc., aunties, uncles, whoever that might be, friends, brothers, friends, sisters, friends, all those sorts of things. So we're widening our scope, and we're looking at different experiences from different people and different teachers. For me, every day of the week was sport. Every single day. My hobbies, we played a lot of games, Monopoly, cards, etc. So that shaped my belief system. I traveled to Wilson's Prom for 6 weeks every year, swimming, surfing, exercise, camping outdoors. So my environment, my normal environment, was active people around me, active leaders, not just people that said do something in terms of outdoors or surfing or running or whatever. They did. Weekends were tennis, mum and dad playing tennis, friends playing tennis, everyone active. That was my normal. What was your normal growing up? What do you remember growing up? And if you are a young person, which there will be on this, be conscious now. Start to think around, is that good leadership or bad leadership? And I'll touch on that also. All right, so what are the lessons and the habits? So lessons, we start learning about leadership from the moment we are born. So be really clear on that. The moment we are born, we are unconsciously learning about leadership. Once again, some of this we will have to unlearn as leaders. And as leaders, be aware that all your staff have so many different experiences. The people around you are all leading, whether you know it or they know it. So when you're a young person, you're naturally looking for guidance. Sometimes we buck that system, all right, because we start to learn, we don't learn from mum and dad anymore. As I said, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we start to buck that trend a little bit. But the people around you, the messages, the lessons, and then at some point, we start to think that is normal. All right, so your normal and my normal might be very different. All right, but that is normal, that is habitual, that's what we do. Me, sport, mum dropping us off, dad going to work, 6 weeks at Wilson's Prom, always active, always outdoors. That was normal for me. Right, now I want you to do this exercise. So think of 3 leaders in your life that you gain valuable lessons from. And think sort of your early teen years. Write down what those lessons were and how they impacted your life. Okay, try not to think about mum and dad. Try to think about people outside your normal sphere. Okay, so think of 3 leaders in your life that you gained valuable lessons from. Think early teens. 15 years, write down what those lessons were and how they impacted your life. Now, for me, when I did this exercise, and you can take some time now, just pause this video, take some time now and write that down. Okay, so for me, Peter Gallagher, the maths teacher. Now, again, once at the time, he was quite strict, but he also had a balance of good empathy. And when I actually started playing at Fitzroy Footy Club, he came and watched me play. Right. So he always checking in on me, always seeing how I was going. But he was very, very strict. At the time, I didn't really like the strict part, but I realized later on in life that was really important to me. Right. So that lesson, being a real authoritarian, was not learnt really or put into practice more later on in life, but he had great empathy. So he was one. John Thompson, my under 13 football coach, strong, a really good guy, really confident, really disciplined, really organized, really respected. So again, think about those words: strong, confident, disciplined, organized, and respected. Rob Morgan, my basketball coach at the Nunawan Inspectors, calm, competitive, caring. So if we go through all those words and take away the names, so look at the lessons, a lot of what I did throughout my playing and coaching career and a lot of what I teach now comes back to that. Authority with empathy, strong, confident, disciplined, organized, respected, calm, competitive, and caring. So what are yours? Who are your three? And what are the words that you're writing down? All right. So the foundations of leadership, as I said, we'll wrap up module 1. How do I learn leadership? What are the foundations of leadership? What is leadership and why is no one teaching leadership? So this is the unconscious component. Leadership is not about title. A CEO can be a bad leader. A junior member of a team can be a great leader. Leadership is action. Think about those actions I've mentioned of those people. Action is a behavior. Is leadership a learned skill or are you born with it? We're starting to now learn where we learn. All right. At all times, you're a leader, whether you like it or not. So you can see some of the examples and hopefully you can think back in your time what those leaders were. Were they good leaders or were they bad leaders because they're directing you or not? All right. First part, module 1, the foundations of leadership.